Hey, Dreamers. In this episode, we got to interview the one and only Ron Schneider, the original Dream Finder from Epcot Center. And he's also the author of From Dreamer to Dream Finder, A Life and Lessons Learned in 40 Years Behind a Name Tag. This was a fun one, wasn't it, Joe?
Yes, it was. I had a great time with him, and it's a long name for a book. I was surprised they were able to fit that on the cover.
It's appropriate, though. It's a good name.
It is appropriate for him. He did such a great job with the interview and just helping us, I think, realize like the potential that we have, and hearing it from a dreamer, somebody who's done it already themselves and now is at the back end of their life. So they've been there, and now they're like talking to us like we're that next step for them to witness.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And if you get a chance to watch the video, we got to record this one in the lobby of the Grand Floridian Resort. So it was fun to be candid with Ron and just hanging out and having a great conversation with him. You're going to learn a lot from this one. You're going to enjoy it. So stay tuned.
Hi, this is Mike Purcell, voice of the Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover. As we approach the Tomorrowland Transit Authority station, our Grand Circle tour is coming to an end, but not to a stop, because you're listening to the Living the Dream podcast with your hosts, Krista Joy from DisneyWays.com and Joe Pardo from HowToDream.co. Hold on tight, because today's journey leads to tomorrow's dream. And get ready for the Living the Dream podcast.
Hello, everyone. Just to remind you again, we're doing this segment called the Magical Memories segment, and we are so thrilled today to have George Scribner with us to share with you his magical memory. And remember, you can share yours just by emailing us at thecrew at our email is thecrew@livingthedreampodcast.com. George, thanks for being with us. Will you share your magical memory?
My pleasure, and thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate this. It's very nice of you. I directed Oliver and Company, which was released in 1988, and probably my magical memory was the night of the wrap party on the lot here in California, Los Angeles, California. It had been such a difficult movie to make. It took about 5 years from start to finish, and just the realization when we had this huge party and there were Tito's walking, like our characters were walking around the party, and it was just this cool, like, I can't believe we're done and we got this movie made, and it opened to good reviews and it was doing well. It was really an enormously satisfying and I guess it was a magical Disney moment. Like, wow, all the work I put into it. It took me 4 tries to get into Disney, and here I was, the director of this feature. It was really it was a cool feeling, like, wow. I just never forgot it. It was a great, great, great feeling.
Absolutely. I can only imagine. I mean, not only did you do this amazing project, but it was with Disney and, just unbelievable. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's an awesome one.
You're welcome. I'll give you one more, and it's really a small one, and you're welcome to edit or use whichever you'd like. And it's really kind of a small thing, but it's a reason. I think I touched on it, Krista, when I did the presentation in Florida, The Villages. I directed Silver Magic. It was released, I forgot, 5, 6 years ago. And occasionally when I'm in Florida, I go see it, and I'll walk out with guests, and I'll listen and see what plays, or I'll just watch and see what kind of actions we did. Work, don't work. And I walked out with the family. I was standing behind them, and they didn't know who I was or anything. And one kid turned to his dad. He must have been like a 5 or 6 year old boy, and he goes, "Wow, that was awesome." And wow, that's a very cool, it's a Disney magical moment. I mean, it sounds corny, but it's a really, that you had some effect on a kid, a child who you don't know, but he walked out of it with that kind of an experience. Even more so than the features, because there's an immediacy to working on projects for Imagineering that you don't get. When you you make a feature and you put it up on screen, which you don't, it goes out to thousands of theaters, but to be able to sit at Silver Magic to listen to this boy respond to this project that took us 3 years to make, another one that took us a long time to make.
Wow.
That was a pretty amazing feeling. You can't put a price on it.
That's amazing. And every time I walk out, I say the exact same thing. So thank you for the beautiful work that you did.
Well, Kristen, you are awesome too. All I have to say. You have awesome taste. No, thanks. It was a lot of work, and a lot of people touched something, but it's a cool feeling. It's a cool feeling.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. That's fantastic. Our guest today has been an actor, writer, director, and consultant for Disney, Universal, and Six Flags on both coasts, as well as numerous themed dinner shows, attractions, and events across America and Canada. His favorite roles include the comic lead at Disneyland's Golden Horseshoe Review and the strolling Dreamfinder and Figment for Disney's Epcot Center. His book is From Dreamer to Dreamfinder, A Life and Lessons Learned in 40 Years Behind a Name Tag. Ron Schneider, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Krista.
We're so excited to have you and talk about some things that you're excited to talk about. So that's always fun. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're here at the awesome Grand Floridian. It's very welcoming here in this little atrium. So, and it's a pleasure to have you, Ron.
Thank you, Joe. Pleasure to be here.
So, Ron, what we got here? Oh, let's see. So, where was your journey? Where did it start with Disney for you?
Southern California. In 1955, I was at Disneyland the day it opened. First day it was open to the public, July 18th, 1955. My father had done some of the air conditioning work on the park, and so we had free passes. And I grew up going to the park and loved it all my life. We went there. We'd go like about 2 or 3 times a year. And as far back as I can remember, I wanted to work there. I wanted to live there. And when Walt Disney passed in 1966, it struck me what a tremendous impact he'd had on my life. And so the next time I went to Disneyland, by that time I was already very much into magic and puppetry. And I was at Disneyland looking around, and it just struck me that this whole thing was a giant stage and that the guests were the stars of the show. It was a show about them and their experience. So ever since then, I became fascinated with theme parks as a performance venue, as an art form that was like beyond theater, beyond film. And I started studying the history of Disneyland and how it worked, how it was created. In 1970, I saw Wally Bogue at the Golden Horseshoe Review and took one look at this man doing this show, which had been running for 15 years at that time, and I realized I want to be him, which is something that happened quite a bit. We had a memorial dinner for Wally, and I sat at a table with 4 other guys who had seen Wally Bogue on stage back in the 70s and said, I want to be him. And we all wound up understudying Wally Bogue. The show ran from 1955 to 1986, I think. I finally, 10 years later, after I saw Wally, I got the job. In that intervening 10 years, I did everything I could to become Wally Bogue, to learn to do what he was doing. I worked at Six Flags Magic Mountain in various positions. I was a tour guide at Universal Studios. I worked various themed dinner shows, 1520 AD Medieval Restaurant, Poppy Star in Encino, and it finally came to 1980. They were looking for a man to understudy Wally for the 25th anniversary of the park and of the show. I walked in, I was able to show them exactly what they wanted. At the same time that I got hired by Disney to do that, I got hired by Universal Studios as creative manager for Womp Hopper's Wagon Works, a $3 million themed dinner show at the studio. So I was working at Disney and Universal at the same time.
That was allowed back then?
Yeah, because if you're unique in what you do, as I encourage people to be, the rules bend. And, if you're a frontline employee at Disneyland, you better toe the line. If you're a frontline employee at Universal, you have to toe the line. But if you're brought in as talent in something, people want you. If you're unique, make yourself unique. People want you, the rules bend. And so I even got to perform at Disneyland with a mustache on stage at the Golden Horseshoe because I needed the mustache for what I was doing at Universal. Nobody was going to complain.
Did you have to buy that mustache?
Did I have to buy it?
Yeah, or did they supply it and you were just like, I'm going to borrow this?
It was mine. So that kind of took me, the Universal job took me past my dream. My dream was to work at the Golden Horseshoe Review, and I could have stayed there for 15 years and been very happy doing the same show five times a day. But the job at Universal brought me into creative management, writing, supervising, and I stayed there till 1982 when I went into doing Dreamfinder at Epcot Center. I performed as Dreamfinder for 5 years, but that also at the same time got me into doing voiceover work. I kind of segued into writing a little bit. When I left Dreamfinder in 1987, after 5 years, it was as a writer and director and performer. And so my initial dream, I was surpassed after 10 years, and spent the next 30 years in exploring all the different aspects of those various possibilities.
And people talk about living their dreams and wanting to live their dreams. What do you think made your journey different so that you were actually able to do that?
A couple of things. Focus. You know, I always tell people, follow your bliss. Whatever it is that you love to do, keep an eye on the prize and just work towards that, no matter what it is. I became determined very young. I knew I wanted to be an actor, so I would take any opportunity to perform, whether it made sense, whether it made money, whatever it is. If I was going to show off, I wanted to build up that resume. I wanted to work at Disneyland, so I went to Disneyland as much as I could. In 1969, I think I went 18 times to Disneyland with people. My hobby became showing people around who'd never been there. And you get to know the place very well. You know how things work. You know the timing of the attractions. You know how people move through the parks. And you develop an attitude and an innate sense of how something works. And all out of my desire to someday be a part of that. When I was about 17, a book came out called Illusions by Richard Bach. And there was a quote in there. He said, "We are never given a dream without also being given the power to make it come true. You may have to work for it, however." I was 17, I was a grown man. I read that and I started to weep because I had this dream in me. And the second I read that, I knew it was true. I knew that this was speaking to me. And it happened. It absolutely happened. I took real jobs. I processed damaged luggage, and I cut fabric to reupholster cars, and I sold children's portraits door to door. But I haven't had a real job in a long, long time because I always focused on taking something, no matter what it was, that to take me closer to my dream.
Was there ever a time where you started to doubt what you were doing? Because, I mean, obviously you had years and years where you were working at these parks just doing everything and anything you could to, I guess, keep food in the belly. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, was there any doubt at some point that you had to work through?
I have an average lasting power of 5 to 6 years in a job. It is the nature of this business. Something new will be created. It will take 1 to 2 years till everything's in place to do the job right. And then after a few years, something inevitably will happen. Management will change. And the new people coming in will have no idea how something works, and they will neglect it and it'll fall apart. This has happened to me dozens of times. And what happens is that I try to get out of that as quickly as possible and move on to something else, find something else that I can do. I've had 2 long patches in my life where I was between idealized jobs and I was freelancing. And the freelancing was a lot of fun too, and I learned a lot. But yeah, there's always self-doubt, and this is one of the reasons I avoided acting. My training is in acting and directing for the stage, but I didn't like the insecurity. You're always looking for the next job. You always have to keep auditioning and handle all that rejection. And with a theme park, you got a paycheck coming every week. You've got insurance. You've got benefits. I really like that. Last time I worked steady in the industry was outside of writing the book and everything was 2010. I've had a certain amount of doubt ever since then. I came to the realization that I deal better with people in a theme park than I do in real life. It takes a certain kind of person to do what we do, and to do it well. You know, you've got to be obsessive to work at Disney. You've got to be obsessive to work in a theme park because you have to care passionately about doing this silly job. But as I've said before, if we don't take it seriously, nobody will. And that's where the craft is. The wonderful opportunities that I've had are unique things that are a direct result of my passion, not because of who I knew connections or anything like that, believe me. I think the nicest thing anyone ever said to me was my good friend Jeff Palmer, recognizing that I'm difficult to work with. He said to me, you know, Ron, working with you is worth it.
That's a great compliment.
I thought so at the time.
It says a lot for your talent and your creativity and all of that. Well, in that vein, you have so much experience working in theme parks, and I think that maybe had something to do with why you wrote your book. Can you talk about your book and what it's about and who it's for?
Well, the idea of a book actually came to me back in my teens. I read a training manual for Disney many, many years ago. It was written by Van Arsdale France and Dick Nunis, who was the former head of Disney Attractions. Van France created the Disney University. And in the book, they were trying to define the art of the theme show. That was the name of the book. There was a quote in there saying that nobody goes to college to learn how to work at a theme park, and nobody raises their children to do that.
They're trying to fix that now.
Right. Well, when I read that, I realized that's me. That's what I want to do. I want to study this. And I looked around. Nobody was teaching it, and now everybody's teaching it. You can take classes on it everywhere, and there are dozens and dozens of books. But back then, nobody was doing it, and even to this day, there's nobody that's teaching the live performance part of it. They're teaching show design, they're teaching the business end of it, they're teaching attractions and all of that stuff, but the best we can get is a couple of books on improvisation and interactive theater. But interactive theater in a theme park is a different thing because it's a corporate thing. And in a theme park, you can't truly improvise because you go into an improv theater, for example, and you walk in and they say, all right, we need a place and we need occupation, and these two people, we need a relationship. And the show is these people dealing with that creatively and coming up with something clever, and you appreciate their creativity. In a theme park, it's not about the performer. It's about your experience. The name of the show isn't the Haunted Mansion. It's your experience of the Haunted Mansion, your intellectual, emotional, physical response to the show. The audience is the medium. So the improvisation we do in the theme park is an illusion. We make you think that the way we're interacting with you has never happened before. But it has to deliver. The guests have paid $100 to get through the gate nowadays. And they don't want to take a chance that their interaction with you is going to be, could be good, could be bad. And it's not about the performer anyway. So you study the audience. You study where their heads are at, how they react to things. You can therefore read their mind, make it appear you read their minds and anticipate. And you have an answer for everything that they could possibly do. There is, because of the way people are raised, the society we all come from, there is what I call a universal childhood. We all see a particular stimulus, and there will be only 4 or 5 ways that we can respond to that stimulus. We see a wizard with a dragon, there are only 4 or 5 ways people are going to respond to a wizard with a dragon. Once you know what those 4 or 5 ways are, you can come up with 3 or 4 different responses for those 4 or 5 things, and boom, you got a show. No matter what the guests come in, you got a guaranteed show, no matter what the guests give you. That is the craft of themed entertainment, themed improvisation. It looks like it's never happened before, but since it's our responsibility to deliver a good show every single time, this is something that I've discovered, and I realized long ago, to get back to the point of your question, somebody should discover this stuff, and once they've discovered it, someone should write it down. That's what inspired my book. I meant to write the book for a long, long time. I wanted to write this textbook about what I discovered over the 40 years. The show that I did at D23 as Dreamfinder back in 2011, there was such tremendous response to that, and so many people interested. And Jim Hill had already said to me, you need to write a book. So finally, after procrastinating for the longest time, I sat down and I wrote a chapter about where I came from. And the next day I sat down, I wrote another chapter, and at the end of 60 days, I had the first draft of the book. And it's mainly a memoir. The first, 5/6 of it is a memoir, taking you through the different jobs, what I discovered, how I discovered it, what happened to me, the people I worked with, the processes we went through. And then the last sixth is the textbook. By no means definitive, by no means comprehensive, but there's chapters on improvisation in theme parks, doing voiceovers, dealing with lookalikes, and the 5 basic rules for writing great themed entertainment. Because there are 5 basic things that I found through 40 years that make for a good show, that audience involvement and like that, and they're not always there.
All I keep thinking about is the experience that you have on why can't I think of the name? The boat the boat ride.
Titanic?
No, yeah, that's
well,
sometimes
I worked for 6 years on Titanic.
Or Jungle Cruise.
Jungle Cruise. I never worked on the Jungle Cruise.
Well, no, I was just thinking about the idea is like when you go on it during the day, you get the straight line like script. But when you go on at night, sometimes they bend the rules a little bit, and you get a little different bits of script or non-script, if you will.
My experience is that it isn't that cut and dry. I think it depends on the guide. Some guides are better suited to being comics than others. This is one of the reasons I've always wanted to work in operations in the performance side of training people, because I think we can do a better job of training those people. Yes, there are people who are naturally born to it. There are people who will never have it. I had really, in '89, when the studios opened out here, I really wanted to work as a supervisor on the Great Movie Ride, working with the live performers in there. There's some people you go through there, they do a wonderful job, and they're terrific with the characters, and they make it seem natural. They're not hitting you over the head with what they're doing.
Yeah.
The problem, this thing was created by Imagineering. Imagineering is better with working with robots than they are with writing for people.
Or scripting robots, if you will.
Yeah. Live performance, especially when you have to do the same thing a million times, you have to walk a fine line between sincerity and reality, between the illusion of the first time. And in my book, I write about comedy. There are 3 types of jokes. There's jokes that you find funny, there are jokes that you and your friends find funny, and there are jokes that everybody finds funny. The stuff that works best in a theme park is the stuff that you and your friends find funny. Your friends being the people who are in the boat with you. You have to acknowledge the reality that we're in a theme park, but not give in to it. Because the audience is not stupid. When you start to think the audience is stupid, that's when you get you lose them. They start to know. They start to feel your insincerity. Did you happen to see Chris Christie's announcement last night?
I did. I didn't actually watch it
the
myself.
Wife.
The wife?
The wife.
I will have to. I'll have to watch
it again. I give you a break there so you could edit this out. The wife was. I'm really happy to be here.
Right before that happened, we in South Jersey, that's where I'm from, had a storm where it was like 80-mile-an-hour winds. It took out power, and we were without power for over 6 days, 5-6 days, and not a peep out of Christie. It was really bad timing on the storm's part, his part, everybody's part. But
it was a laugh riot. Yeah, go on Facebook. Go to my Facebook page. See the pictures I posted of his wife.
I will have to check that out.
Take a break, and we'll go back to the show. Thank you for playing.
There you go, Krista.
I also loved your comment about the treats that they're no longer selling at Animal Kingdom.
Oh, well.
I doubled over laughing when I saw that. So anyway, moving on. Do you have any advice for young people that are kind of hoping and wishing that they could follow in your footsteps? Any kind of words of wisdom that you would share with them?
I've already talked about pursuing your bliss. One of the questions I get is, how do I become an Imagineer? How do I become a dream finder? How do I get that job? And as far as working your way into those dream jobs at the theme parks, the first thing you need to do is get into the theme park, is get a job. Any job. It doesn't matter doing what. If you're bussing tables, if you're cleaning rooms, it doesn't matter. If you can get a ride operator's job, fine. The thing is to get into the company so that you can learn the company. Once you're in, you can network. You can meet people. You can communicate with the people at various arms of the company. Disney's very good about that. They let you peek behind the curtain and see how the magic is done, and you get this tremendous insight and all sorts of resources handed to you. Same thing at Universal. I understand. I haven't worked there in a long time. Once you're in and you understand that and you got that and you can identify what your dream job is, get the hell out. Because it's difficult to work your way up from within. It takes a long, long time. And the really golden jobs, they don't hire people and train them for. Nobody was going to hire me and train me to be a dream finder because no one had ever been a dream finder before. Nobody hired Tony Baxter and trained him to be an Imagineer. He had to train himself. He got out and he went to college. I got out, I worked at the theme parks. I pursued anything that would lead me in that direction. And with the result being that when the time came they were looking for a comic for the Golden Horseshoe, I was able to walk in to the audition, and not only was I perfect for the job, but the guy who was casting turned to Wally Bogue and said, "This is the kid I was telling you about." They'd heard about me.
Wow.
When I got the job as creative supervisor for the celebrity lookalikes at Universal Studios, it was because I had done a show many years before with a couple of people, and I let them know that I knew everything there was to know about Laurel and Hardy and the Marx Brothers and the Blues Brothers. And so when they were looking for someone to write for those people, I already had that knowledge. I'd studied that all my life. So you get the hell out and go somewhere and make yourself into that job. Do that job somewhere else so that when the opportunity pops up at Disney, you're able to walk into it.
It's brilliant. That's the kind of stuff they don't teach you in school.
No. And I was going to say, to add, when something's not been done before, you can't go to school for it. So it has to be created. And that's when, if you just network and like you said, go get the job. It doesn't matter what it is. At least you're around the people and you're doing things. You're not just sitting around saying, well, I wish I was working at Disney. Well, then why are you working at Wawa? Mm-hmm. Like what good is it? Like that's not going to bring any value to what you do because you're basically building your resume from scratch because you can't just go to school. I mean, well, you could go to clown college. There's something that kept coming up to my mind and the idea of like, well, I want to go into something that's out there that isn't created yet.
I've worked with a lot of people who came out of clown college and are working for the theme parks in wonderfully creative positions.
Really?
There's a wonderful fellow named Joe Wesson. Was our first Harpo Marx at Universal Studios. He was one of the Giggle Gang at the new area of Fantasyland, and has been with Disney Streetmosphere since Hector was a pup. I've worked with a lot of former clowns. It's all good experience. When I was processing damaged luggage in downtown Los Angeles, my mind was always on the Golden Horseshoe. Always on Walt Disney World, which I'd never visited at that time. So when the damaged luggage would come across my desk, I would always check the pockets, and I'd find cocktail stirrers from Walt Disney World. I spent that time also going to the parks and tape recording all the ride narrations. I knew every ride narration by heart at Disneyland, taking pictures of the park, taking people on tours of the park. Even if you have to take a real job, and I hope you never do, there's a way to use that time to follow your bliss, follow your passion.
Yeah, I mean, I find when I take breaks from things and I come back to it, I always have a fresh pair of eyes. It's like when you're getting frustrated with something, you step away from it, or you go to sleep, or you just take a month or two off from whatever it is you're doing. You come back and it's like, hey, I did something else in that time, and now I can apply some of the how-to of thinking that you don't get really taught at school, is the how, and that's why I think your book is so looking for the word because I can't think of how to think right now myself, but poignant. That's So is it really the word? I don't know.
Sounds good to me.
Probably. Okay, cool.
Poignant's good, yeah.
So why don't you go into a little more about the book and how was it? So, yeah. Why? Well, you kind of talked about it. I know. I'm like, I am all over the place right now. So yeah. I mean, you did talk about the why and the how and the who. I mean, is there anything else you'd like to add about the book, though?
Buy it. It's my good friend Leonard Kinsey is my publisher. Just did the most amazing job, and of course he wrote the horrid Dark Side of Disney, which is a wonderful book too, in spite of what Disney may think of it. And he just did a wonderful job of putting it out there. I got to do the audiobook, and there's the Kindle version, all that stuff out there. No, there's not much more to say about it. It's kind of looking back on it now, and I've never said this. You read the Amazon reviews, and there's a couple people who say in their reviews, this guy obviously is very full of himself. Everybody else makes mistakes. This guy never makes a mistake. And I agree. There's a certain amount of that in there. But everybody thinks that their way is the right way. To a certain extent.
You made it. You know?
I think the quality of my work and the roles that I've gotten kind of speak for themselves. But there was an interview with Betty Hutton back on Turner Classic Movies. They asked her, why do you have a reputation for being difficult to work with? And she says, well, I've been doing this for a long, long time, and so when I see something going south, I'm able to recognize it early on, and I speak up. I realize sometimes that there's time being wasted or energy being wasted with something that isn't going to get us where we want to go. I've learned over the years, slowly I'm learning to keep my mouth shut. And but I wouldn't trade a moment of where I've been or what I did, and I wouldn't stay a day longer at any of the jobs I've had, except possibly the ones where I went. If I went to something better, I would have loved to stay at the Golden Horseshoe another 20 years. But when I left a job, it was primarily because it was the right time for me to leave the job.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that logic. And you know, it is important to know when to leave. And you'll find that out towards the end of my book. I did want to ask you, is there any moment that made it feel more magical for you than maybe any other particular moment? They're like, hey, I'm Dreamfinder, and you know, and did you realize at the time that what you were doing was going to matter to so many people decades after it was long gone? No, absolutely not. I knew it was special right from the start. The first time I saw the Dreamfinder, the dream catching machine had been programmed at Imagineering, and I saw it there set up before it was installed. I was one of the first people to see that part of the show, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do, was be this character, and I knew immediately this is an incredible honor. I've had a lifetime of moments like that, because I've had a lifetime of incredible opportunities, incredible jobs, where I've been handed responsibilities for not just for characters, but for entire ideas, for concepts and themes. And so I've had a lot of incredible magical moments, performing with Danny Kaye on the television show, for the opening of Epcot Center, the opening of Universal Studios with my people that worked for me, making the move from being the one on stage to the one behind the stage, working with these incredible, talented people. There's too many opportunities. Getting the Golden Horseshoe and walking out on the Golden Horseshoe show for the first time, going out on that stage and feeling that response. I've had a lifetime of moments like that. Is there, now going forward, what other projects do you have going on that you'd like to talk about? And I mean, you're not completely retired. Obviously, you just wrote your book, and you're here, and you're talking. And what's up next?
The what's been happening more and more is I find myself mentoring people, taking the message that's in my book and passing it on, doing these podcasts and trying to pass the word along about follow your bliss and keep dreaming. The people that I've met, talking to them, and the groups I've spoken to. I still act whenever I can, doing shows with various theater groups in Orlando. I do voiceover work and storytelling. I just got engaged for the first time in my life. I was 62 years old. I got a fiance and I got a family and a house, and my life is happier than I've ever been. I miss working in the park. I miss being on the front lines. But my problem is I've been doing it for 40 years, and I'm considered old school. Last time I had an interview for a writing, directing job in theme parks. The interview went beautifully. I came out of it feeling I'd done a wonderful job, and I found out later that they thought I was old school, that I couldn't learn anything new. And the principles that I espouse in my book and that I talk about are timeless, and some of the stuff I see could certainly use some of that.
Yeah. Well, we probably need to get wrapped up, unfortunately, but thank you so much for your time and all that you shared. And we don't pay him for this, but he comes out and he shares his wisdom and his knowledge, and we just appreciate you so much. So
well, I so appreciate you. And Joe, I just bought his book, and it's wonderful. You've got to get his book is incredible. It's a wonderful book on parenting and what it takes to be a human being. There's a lot in it. So, and it's quick read. I mean, a couple of times on the toilet and you got it. So there's a recommendation. Put that on a back cover. It's been a pleasure, and Krista, as always, just do the most wonderful stuff for people.
Well, thank you. Thank you
so much.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we've got this new sign-off, so we're going to share it today for the first time,
How
right?
can people connect with Ron?
Yeah, share with how everybody can connect with you online.
Find me on Facebook, Ron Schneider. I love hearing from people. And if you when you want the book, if you want the book, you can go to Bamboo Forest Publishing. You can order from them. An autographed copy will be sent to your house. I'll be happy to autograph it for you. You can go to Amazon, and they have paperbacks, hardcovers. We got the audio book, 9 hours of me talking. Think about that. And there's a Kindle book. It's on Goodreads. It's on Barnes & Noble's site. It's everywhere. Or come down to Orlando and buy me lunch.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds great. So to close out, just thanks for tuning in, everybody. And just remember, the journey is yours. Enjoy each and every step. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Living the Dream podcast. We know there's a lot of great shows out there that you could be listening to, and we appreciate you taking the time to tune into ours. Remember to check us out online at livingthedreampodcast.com.
The greatest compliment you could give us is going to Stitcher Radio or iTunes and leaving us a rating and review. It helps us get the message out there to other dreamers.
It sure does. And until next time, I'm Krista Joy.
And I'm Joe Pardo. And remember, today's journey leads to tomorrow's dream.
If you can dream it, Mad Hatter Adventures can help make it happen. Mad Hatter Adventures specializes in everything from family trips, corporate travel, and last-minute getaways. Let Mad Hatter Adventures take the stress out of planning your trip and help save you money. There's no charge for their services, and they specialize in Disney vacations. Visit madhatteradv.com or give them a call at 1-844-M-HATTER today to find out more. Make all your travel dreams come true by calling 1-844-M-HATTER.